Pecha Kucha 60 inking with Street Fighter. So at the start of the week, I was just listening to some music from Street Fighter 2 Turbo, my first game when it came out on the Super Nintendo way back when. And as each track was playing, I tried to do a super quick sketch of the character that the music belonged to. So first two, because they weren't playing in order, was Vega and Sagat. Vega bouncing off the steel cage fence thing in the background, and then Sagat striking one of his victory poses. You know, these are kind of things like the iconic image I have of these characters in my head when I hear their music. E Honda doing the 100 hand slap, me not being able to remember what his face paint looks like or anything about him, his hair. That could be really nice Fist of the North Star style. And Bison with his stage in the background, the giant bells, most muted picture of him I've ever started. Ryu and Guile in the middle of creating a sonic boom, and Ryu I'm actually remembering from his Street Fighter Alpha 3 stage where there's like a tree in the background and the leaves swirl when he strikes his victory pose where he folds his arms. So yeah, that memory not so accurate. Dao Sim and Chun-Li. Dao Sim with the elephants in the background doing one of his weird victory poses where he's like kind of clapping and I don't know, it was weird, so I remember it. And then Chun-Li like jumping for joy with bicycles in the background. That's all I remember for her. Blanca doing that kind of really tall stand-up raw thing, which is quite cool. And then the bonus stage, which I always kind of think of like Ryu and Ken like smashing up the car on Ken's stage, like the harbour, the port, the pier. Balrog and Zangief going for the grab, Balrog going for like a big Tyson uppercut and then I remember there's like the Vegas crowd in the background. A little too late to like do the girls with the top hats in their sparkling whatever the heck they wears. And then Ken doing a super duper ooper dragon punch because the computer used to spam those things like they were fireballs. Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So there's a lot of stuff there that I could modify and, you know, turn into some nice fan art. Yeah, but you know me, that would mean I have to finish something. But, you know, that's where my week started. And as I was in the middle of doing all this, I accidentally misclicked in Manga Studio Pro and found where the 3D models live. It's yeah, it's like using a camera in Premiere Pro. Like you can move everything in a 3D axis, but you know, on top of a 2D art program, it's a little awkward. So this is me like going through the poses and looking at one of the hand poses, and as I open it, I get the whole body, and I'm like, this might not be as convenient as I would have liked. Like I said, you can zoom in and you can change angles and reposition a great many of the body parts, you know. So I kind of made a thumbs up here because that is the one hand position I really should know how to draw by now. It's a little bit clunky, and maybe I'm better off just Googling people doing thumbs up, or I don't know, looking at my own hands. I got two of those. So I started tentatively inking a couple of the Street Fighter sketches I did because they're super rough. But the thing is, inking is something that you want really nice, clean lines, and I always struggle with that digitally. So I'm trying to figure this out, what I can get away with, what is just too much. So Guile, I come in with a lot of the things I've discovered in the last few weeks, action lines and stuff, concentric circle guides, all these things that, effectively let me get certain types of lines without it being difficult. But when I remove some of those things, I think maybe the image works a bit better. So even though I have all of these toys to play with, it's quite important to be judicial with their use. And I started silhouetting Guilin with his eyes and then down his torso, and I'm like, is that really how I want to do that? So, what is my fascination with like strong black ink work? Well, it's, people like Brian Bolland, the quality of their artwork is phenomenal, and I like it a lot. I'm not sure if I emulate it completely because it's maybe not worth that much effort. to get those good results every picture. So I'm messing around with brushes and stuff, and I put together a little headshot of Vega with the chalk brush, which is my go-to. And I'm starting to figure out that the reason I like the chalk brush so much is because it creates diffuse lines, so any wobble is mitigated. It's less obvious to the eye. So I then take that first layer and then I try and do a second layer that's a little bit more precise. I try to cut down exponentially on the scruffy lines and just kind of commit to one per curve. And I've doubled that layer and like it's made the line work darker because like the pencil is diffuse. And I think that this is the kind of level I can live with for what we will call finished artwork. So I just whack some color on it with all the care I show when I do these things. And I think if you were looking at a whole page of things like this, it wouldn't be a big deal. You'd read the text, you'd see the images, and you'd move on, and we'd be okay. So I think this is probably the level I want to look at going forward with the comics that I was supposed to do this week but didn't. So what will I do next week? I will take this art style as it stands and I will apply it to the Transformers thing I was starting 2 weeks ago. And I really got to start doing some smiley shows for publication. Yoji Shinkawa is another one of my favourite influences. He uses a lot of black line work, but he does a lot of brush work, so maybe there's a way I can not need to worry about being quite so specific. So I should really look into that. But whatever I do this week, the most important thing is to be doing something. The more time I spend just sitting in the chair doing stuff, the more discoveries I'll have by accident, like the 3D tab. And, the more revelations I'll have, like, where do I draw the line in terms of finding an ink brush, and also my ratio of time spent to, like, quality of line work produced. So that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 60, and I will see you next time.